Hi, this is Darren from Property Prosperity. Today I'm just going to have a chat about an article I read in I think it was on the internet somewhere, but it was basically talking about how in Victoria they're bringing in regulations where real estate agents have to quote within 10% of the price that the house is going to sell for, because they're saying that agents are underquoting what the true value of the house essentially. And they're saying they're doing that as a tactic of underquoting to get lots of people in, and then once they get the people in, everyone can, pay whatever they want to pay, and then ends up selling for a lot more, and then you end up with all these people that are really disappointed that they thought they could afford a house that they couldn't actually afford. So I suppose from my perspective, I just don't think you can regulate the market to a degree. At the end of the day, what something's worth is what someone's willing to pay for it. So the assumption of this whole process is of this regulation is it assumes that the agent knows what they're talking about. And not even that, to be honest. It doesn't even matter whether the agent knows what they're talking about, because in reality, hey Dave, thanks for joining. In reality, the agent's not buying the house, so who cares what the agent thinks the house is worth? Likewise, to be honest, it doesn't even matter what the owner thinks the house is worth, because in reality, it only matters what the market's willing to pay for the house. So, I've experienced in this my own example where, I put a property on the house. I put a lot of effort into trying to research what I think the house is worth, even though I'm sort of flippantly saying it doesn't really matter what the agent thinks and it doesn't matter what the owner thinks. I still want to have a good idea of where the market's at, so then we can sort of have a strategy going forward. It doesn't necessarily mean the strategy is going to go according to plan, but if we think the house is worth $350 and we're quoting 400, then we know that we might have to drop the price relatively quickly because we know we're overpricing it. And likewise, if we think the house is worth $350 and we're quoting 300,000, we know that we're going to expect a lot of people coming in. We're going to expect, we're sort of essentially in that example, we're underquoting, getting a lot of people in there. And so we're going to have a lot of competition. So we've got to be ready to react in a certain way if we've got a situation where we think it might be underpriced. So the reason why it's really important to have a good idea of what it's worth, or what we think it might be worth, is because then we can sort of try and plan for a strategy. But in reality, you don't really know until you put it on the market. So that's why I put all this effort in up front. Literally, I probably have a couple of hundred pages of information I go through and provide to the owner of this is why I think it's worth a certain price. So I'm extremely thorough, and that just gives the owner the confidence, okay, we've done the work up front, we've got a plan, we know exactly how we're going to execute our plan. Hey Ashley, thanks for joining, and then how we're going to achieve our result. But in reality, when you put it on the market, you don't know what's going to happen. And so, I've had scenarios where I put it on the market, let's say I put it on the market at $350, and then someone's offered $350. And I said, well, we've had offers higher than that, and so you're probably not going to get the property. And they're like, but I'm offering the asking price, you have to accept my offer. And I'm like, no, we don't. That was just the price we put on the market because we thought that was a fair price at the time. Obviously, at the moment, we've had offers that are higher than that asking price. So basically, logic would tell you the owner's going to take the price which they think's the best for them. And if that happens to be a higher price, then they're going to accept a higher price. And they get really angry with me, to be honest, and saying, but that's not fair. That's not fair. You've said you wanted $350 and I'm giving you $350. You have to accept it. And so I suppose hopefully this is a bit of a heads up for people that are buying a property, but also people that are selling a property, understanding that you don't control the market. So if the agent, as much effort as I put in trying to predict what the market might be, in reality, I don't really know until I put it on the market. And so whatever people are willing to pay for it is what it's worth. If I think it's worth $350, let's say we put it on the market, we had 100 people come to the open, everyone thinks it's worth $350, and one person comes in paying $450. Has that person paid too much? No, that person's paid what they're willing to pay. At the end of the day, it's worth what someone's willing to pay for it, and all you need is for one person to pay that price, and that's suddenly what it's worth. And so this is the crazy thing about valuations, or looking at historical data and trying to use that to predict the future. A lot of people get valuations done by the bank or the council do valuations. There's a whole pile of different valuations that happen along the way. But in reality, until someone's bought it in today's market, if that was then you don't really know. If you're using comparable sales from the house down the road or comparable sales of, a house from 2 years ago, then it's not the same. The price 2 years ago is not the same as today. And likewise, the house down the road is not the same as this house. And the environment or the way the house was sold, it might not have been marketed very well. It might have a bad photos or a bad video, or it might have, the agent might not have very good negotiating skills, or you don't know the history behind the sale of that property down the road. So how can you use that as a representation of what this house is going to sell for? So, and I suppose that's where my concern comes in with trying to legislate agents to quote a realistic price, or a price that the house is going to sell for. And what they're actually going to do is they're going to fine the agent, or give the situation where the agent doesn't get paid a commission if the house sells outside of a 10% range of what the agent was expecting the house to sell for. Sorry about that. So what's that going to do for the market? Can you imagine in a situation where I put it on the market, all the historical data is showing that it's worth $350, and I get a whole pile of offers in, and I can see I'm getting offers really quickly, like really, really fast. And so I'm getting one at $350, and then $360, and then $370, and $380. What am I going to do when I get an offer at $380, when I know that if the price goes outside that 10% range, then I'm going to get fined and I'm going to lose my commission? So if the property sells at $390, then I'm breaking the law. And so the question with that is, that's nuts. At the end of the day, you imagine if you're an owner and you know that the agent then has to accept an offer at $385, because if it goes up to $390, the agent's going to lose their commission and they're going to get a fine. You imagine from the perspective of the owner that suddenly at $385, the agent has to come back to the owner and say, well, we've got an offer at $385, we're going to have to accept that, because otherwise I'm breaking the law. That's the crazy thing about trying to regulate the market. You can't regulate the market. The market at the end of the day is all about supply and demand. And you come in here trying to say this is what it's worth, and you're predicting that in the future. And then if you're outside of that range, legally you're not allowed to be outside of that range. So at the end of the day, the agent's not buying the property and the owner's not buying. Even though the agent made that prediction, the owner accepted, yep, I think that's a fair price. If someone's willing to pay $400,000 for a house that's worth $350, who is the agent to say that's not a fair price? And who is the owner to say that's not a fair price? And who is the government to come in and say, no, someone can't pay $400,000 for a house that should be only worth $350? At the end of the day, it's not up to anyone else. It's up to that new purchaser to decide what they think it's worth. So hopefully you understand why that law is nuts and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And hopefully it's not going to change at the end of the day, because they're always going to try and regulate things, and you can't really stop it. So I'm sure it'll come in. In South Australia, we've got exactly the same regulation. If you go into auction, you have to quote a price which is within 10% of the price. So it's not any different in South Australia. Obviously, it's relatively new in Victoria, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And whoever thinks that's a good idea obviously has no understanding of markets and prices and what people are willing to pay for things. So hopefully that's made sense. If you've liked what I had to say, click on the like button. If you haven't liked what I had to say, then still click on the like button, because I really appreciate it. And if you've got a comment to make, if you're a real estate agent and you think that's nuts, if you're a buyer and you think it's, you think that people have to accept whatever price you offer, I suppose put yourself in the shoes of the owner. What would they do? If you were the owner and someone wanted to offer you more money, would you say, no, I can't accept more money because I don't want to take more money, because I want to, take the price that the markets that an agent's told me I have to accept? That's crazy in anyone's perception. So hopefully you understand as the buyer why at the end of the day, if you miss out on a property because someone paid more money, it's because they paid more money. It's not anyone else's fault, but your situation, you can't afford to pay more. It's not the other purchaser's fault that they could afford to pay more than you. So hopefully that's made sense to you. Hopefully that makes sense to you as a vendor too, that you'd say, hey, well, I think it's a bit crazy that they're forcing me to accept a lower price than I otherwise may have to accept. So yeah, look, I appreciate to hear your thoughts on this, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. If you've got something else you'd like me to talk about in the future, or you know something which seems a bit weird to you in the world of property, and you're like, hey, wonder what Darren thinks about that, I'm happy to have a chat and explain you my thoughts, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye for now.